Hi, welcome back to another TerranScapes video. In this video I have the completed project of the Imperial Sector, and if you're new to the channel, you might want to go back and take a look at some of the other videos that I've done on this project. It's been a long ongoing project, and there are several videos that show it work in progress, construction, painting, and the like. But basically the final details that were needed to be done was to add the snow effects to it as well, and in a few spots I added some soot and added some propaganda posters and probably a few other things that I've forgotten, as this has actually been on the shelf for a week while I've been working on some other things. So I'll try and show you all the new things that I can remember to point out, and we'll take a quick overview of most of the pieces, but not all of them, as there are a lot of pieces in the project, and a lot of the new details are the same on all of the buildings. So we'll take a look at some of the key features on a few of the showpieces, and we'll go from there. So here's a look at the stairs and the large building. One of the things that I really wanted to do was to try to capture snow blowing onto the surfaces and collecting, there's a little hair there, collecting, in the windowsills. I added some icicles to a variety of locations around the building, and really tried to give it, a frosty feel, if you will. The back of the building here, let's get this off. In the interiors, basically what I did is, sprinkle snow horizontally, I know my directions, vertically onto them, and then sort of blew in a light amount of snow into, behind, underneath the walkways, but really left that a little bit more sparse. I did go through, though, and add in, icicles in the interiors of the building, and tried to reflect, that there'd be a snow pile nearby, leaking, that sort of idea. And same, along the bottom. Now, one of the things, of course, here are some more icicles where they might collect. There's some icicles under here. Just tried to pile a little snow in some corners. Maybe it had been shoveled over there, and then with melt it remained, and then a little freshly fallen snow had landed in some spots. Gives you a little idea of that. Let's take a look at the back half of the building. Give you a sense of how the back half came out. Something like that. And the interior of the building as well. Again, some more icicles hanging off. I was a little concerned about these icicles for play, that whether they'd be fragile and, reaching in with miniatures, but they do have a little flex to them, so they should be okay. But of course, a little care in moving the building. I always try to find a spot where there aren't any icicles to lift it up from. But all of these floors and walkways and such are very, very secure, so it makes it pretty easy to carry the buildings like this without damaging any of the snow surfaces or the icicles. And give you a little sense of that. Now, one of the things that luckily works for this building, or this set, but is a potential caveat for the future, is I had a very difficult time, well, difficult meaning I wasn't able to seal the model mates effectively so that it wouldn't bleed through the snow. The building's got a gloss clear coat and then a matte coat. I sprayed the gloss coat on these buildings with my airbrush, and then on a final building I used a Rust-Oleum clear coat, gloss coat, and then a matte army painter over that, and I wasn't able to prevent bleeding through. But on a piece like this, where, say, in this corner here, where the snow is, stained by the model mates, it kind of works for a dirty rust effect, whereby this is again, maybe a corrosive environment, and even under the frigid temperatures, there's still some corrosion and tainting, and of course, with lots of loose rust, that's it could wick through the snow. So it's believable, but it is something to consider for future projects where that may be not desirable. Luckily, on this kind of a structure, it works pretty well. Give me a sense of the side and the top there. And here is the large building with the balcony sort of out front. and give you a sense of how that came out. Again, you know, icicles, little tiny ones. Oh, that's out of frame. Anyway, some little tiny ones coming off of the tops of various spots. Added them in wherever it seemed appropriate and was a good place to hang them from. Added in some propaganda posters, as I mentioned before. See if I can get in a little closer on that so you can at least see what those look like up close. There we go. Found those online. Printed them out. I had to rescale them a little bit. Some of them I didn't like the original size. So posters that I found that I liked, I just rescaled them down, printed them out, cut them out, glued them on, weathered them a little bit, gave them some washes, dirty them up. Some of them I burned a little bit so that they'd have an uneven edge. Here's the interior of it, and here you can see, you know, some of those instances where the snow has dirtied, which of course snow does get dirty, so it, again, like I said, it works in this kind of an environment, but not in all environments, so that's something to consider with the model mates. But that gives you a little sense. I really like how the snow came out in terms of contrasting with the you know, the sort of the bright whites with the dirty grays and the rust color, and I just think it really, you know, popped some of the building really well. And here you can see some more posters that I've stacked around those walls. Piled some snow, and some things, you know, will be harder to see. You know, it's sort of a close inspection. You know, put in a little ice running down some of these corners. See, where else should I put some? Well, I don't see on this front here. You know, it's sort of got randomly put around in different spots. Some areas I went in and darkened, you know, to make it look like soot, where some areas maybe had fires in the past. So different spots and different buildings got that as well. And here's the power plant section. Give you a sense of how that came out. Again, some icicles, you know, added them hither and thither. That's the best way to describe it. There's a lot of surfaces you could add them to. They're kind of time consuming. Too many might be too much, so decided to just put them where my fancy and time allowed. And here you can see, you know, a little of the green came through on some of the snow. Again, it kind of works on this piece. Give you a little closer look at some of the features here. One thing I found were a couple sort of like industrial signs, so I decided to sort of add one to one of these tanks. There was another one that I added over here, you know, so sort of tacked a couple of those around, give it a little bit final touch detailing. And here are the walkways, the magnetized walkways, and you can see, you know, how those effects came out there. I decided to put in, you know, some hanging icicles coming off the bottoms of these. You know, it's sort of these openings where water was probably constantly dripping. I like the way the snow sort of ended up on the lamp posts. It's a lot of very fine spraying of glue water mix and some very light applications of snow. But overall sort of tied in this piece pretty well, I think. A sense of what that looked like there. And here is the other half of the walkway, the one that's mounted on the base. Give you a sense of how that came out. Give me a close-up of some of those icicles. Some of these icicles were the ones I showcased in another video a while back that I had purchased. Most of these are homemade, so I make a sort of core out of you know, like blister pack, and then build it up with Woodland Scenic's water effects. So it takes a couple coats and a little, you know, a little care with the paintbrush to get them into the right shape. But they come out really nice, and they do retain a little flexibility so that they're able to, you know, be handled and not be damaged in gameplay. And here's the Battlescape piece. This was a bit of a trick in the sense that I just really Wasn't sure how much snow to put on the Rhino. You know, I worked so hard to put on all those different effects on it, and I didn't want them to all disappear. But in the end, I kind of just kept putting on snow until it looked right and would match the board set. If you look on the site, and I'll link to it when I have these photos up, they should be up when you see this video. The battle board set that I made originally had a light snow, but a sort of dusting of it. So I wanted to capture that level of snow on this piece as well, and so that just meant sort of, you know, I don't know, keep adding snow till it looked right. What I do like, however, is that because of this vertical side here, you know, the top got a little more snow, but you can still see some of that shading, and some of that shading then is kind of coming through in the snow. Overall, I really like how it came out. I feel like it did a pretty good job. I added in some Envirotex tinted to make some ice in the craters, and filled those, and then, you know, of course they got a little snow on top of that ice, but I think that kind of gives it a nice frosty look that helps to tie the piece in. And here are a few pieces from the Macragge Lander. Again, sort of similar to the Rhino, you know, how much to add, you know, this kind of where I ended up. Again, I let the snow fall as it will and let it take some of its own form in it. So you get a little snow shadow here because of the angle of the blade, and that's kind of nice. Gives it a little bit of, you know, sort of a little more realism. You can see, of course, some of the rust effects have sort of bled through the snow a little bit, but it matches all the other pieces, and I think it works for a piece like this. Maybe give you a little close-up of what that really looks like up close. And a quick look at some of the objective markers. I was debating whether to, whoops, sorry about that, to add snow to them, you know, as they could be placed interior of the building and not get snowed on. But in the end, since I blew snow into the interior of some of the buildings, I figured I'd give them just a light dusting to tie it in so they could be placed anywhere on the board and not look out of place. So there's how those came out. Give me a little close-up of that, so you can see that. And the supply stack, if you will. You going to focus for me here? There we go. You get a sense of how that'll look on the tabletop. And one more look at one of the other building sections, so you can get a sense. I, you know, took this area, sooted it up a little bit prior to the snow application. Again, some more icicles hanging from some spots. This is where the walkway connects with the magnets. A little shot of the interior. Made sure most of the ladders have a little snow on the rungs. And you get a sense of what these buildings look like. And, you know, not shown are a variety. You know, there's probably at least a half a dozen, you know, little posters that I stuck inside some of the buildings, next to doorways, whatnot. So those are scattered about, little things to find. Carried the soot from the opening inside there on the front side. Took that and, you know, added a little bit in the interior as well. I don't think that had been done since last time I showed it. So overall, really pleased with how these came out. Think it really tied together well, and I think it's going to look great on the Roma battle set that was already shipped some months back. So I hope you enjoyed taking a look at these buildings. Snow is always tricky, and I find it always, I think, one of the most challenging things. And, you know, there's limitations based on the materials. If you use powdery snow, it can, you know, change in its texture when it gets wet to seal it. If you use Woodland Scenics granular snow, sometimes it can look a little sandy because the particles are a little large. So I blend the two together and hopefully find a compromise. I see a lot of people mentioning using baking soda. I've never used baking soda. I don't recommend using baking soda. My understanding is that it yellows over time. So for those of you who are thinking about doing your own snow scenes, I would stay away from it. Although some people mix in white paint into it to compensate for that yellowing. I haven't used it, but I tend to want to avoid something that may have a color change down the road, and that's why I stick with railroad modeling supplies. There are pictures up on the website by the time you see this. There'll be a link from the main page that is down below. There's like a new update section on the TerranScapes webpage, and you can find the pictures of these in the custom work section, custom work gallery of the site, and get another look at them and a look at all of the pieces, that a couple pieces that I didn't show here. So comments, questions down below, always welcome. Appreciate those, and keep your eye on the channel. I'll probably be back in another week with another update on the castle project, so hopefully you'll follow along with me then. I'll talk to you later.